We're going to take you now to the foyer of the House of Commons, where Environment Minister is speaking. Let's listen in.
Full investigation means that the file has reached a stage where officers will determine whether charges are warranted for non-compliance with the Federal Fisheries Act. It means the process is underway to hold the company to account. But as this is an active investigation, I can't say any more at this point. Canada has a fair and impartial system for enforcing federal laws to protect the environment, and I cannot prejudice the investigation. Furthermore, internal analysis conducted by my department has revealed the serious gaps in reporting and notification of these incidents. This is why we are co-developing with Indigenous communities and the Government of Alberta and the Northwest Territories new measures to strengthen notification and monitoring systems. The basis of our working group are under development. We need to see the company reclamation plans for these tailing ponds and how this reclamation will be done in a way that considers the Indigenous communities that live on the land. We need to study the risks from the tailing ponds and the oil sands and the risk to human health so that we can better understand the gravity of the problem and identify the right course of action. I won't rest until we find solutions. Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much.
Merci, Stephen. Bonjour tout le monde. As Albertans, there are two fundamental truths. One is that we're very proud of the oil and gas sector and all the workers that make up that sector, and also the prosperity that it's brought to Alberta and to Canada. And equally, we're very proud of the environment that we have, the amazing nature that we have, and safe drinking water and healthy communities. And so when we have an indication, or when we have an incident like Imperial oil and tailings ponds that are not accounted for and that communities are not informed, it's simply unacceptable. And Imperial Oil CEO did not acquit himself well at committee. In fact, they did themselves no favors. And so when I hear people in Alberta saying we want answers, we want solutions, we want a real plan, I stand with those peoples. It's not fair and it's unjust for Indigenous communities that are living downstream to have questions about their drinking water table and, quite frankly, the health of the natural environment. And so I'm standing with Minister Guilbeault here and saying very clearly on behalf of Albertans that apologies after the fact aren't good enough. We need Imperial to come to the table with real solutions and a plan that has answers and a path forward. And that is what is going to be in the interests of Albertans and all Canadians. Merci beaucoup.
So, Minister, in English and French, what's the maximum consequence that we could see resulting from these charges?
Well, as I said, since it is now an active investigation, I can't make any further comments, but you can look back in the history of Canada and the enforcement branch and environmental fines that have happened. But I won't speculate on what could happen, as there is an ongoing investigation. But we would be happy to provide you with a list of the latest, say in the last few years, the fines that have been imposed in Canada as per our environmental laws. But again, I'm not speculating on this specific case right now.
Why did it take so long to sorry, go ahead. Can I get some remarks in French, because our Radio Canada colleagues will want this as well.
En fait, aujourd'hui, les représentants d'Environnement et Changement climatique Canada,
the representatives from Environment and Climate Change Canada are responsible for the application of the Environmental Act, and they have decided to make sure that the investigation
de la mine Kearl mine en Alberta passe à une autre étape, celle
on the spill of the Kearl mine in Alberta has gone on to a next step, an investigation. It's an important step, and it means that
de l'équipe de mise en œuvre des lois ont décidé
independent public servants have decided that we had to push further the analysis on the leaks at the Kearl mine. I can't say any more right now because there is an active investigation, and we will have to follow very closely over the next few weeks and months the evolution of the situation. Thank you.
The leak happened months ago, but why it takes so long to finally move to this step?
Well, as you probably know, the Indigenous communities, as well as Environment and Climate Change Canada, were only notified months after the leaks started happening. The enforcement branch of Environment and Climate Change Canada is totally independent from me. They don't take orders from me. I don't tell them what to do. They do their work independently, and they have been looking into this since we have been made aware of this, which was only some weeks ago. And today they have issued this decision to move to the next step in regards to Kearl mine.
Are you, I don't know, disappointed?
Okay, that is the Minister of Environment announcing there that Canada's federal ministry officially opened a formal investigation into a months-long tailings leak at Imperial Kearl oil sands mine in northern Alberta. I believe we have Sarah Galashan, who is listening in along on this. Sarah, bring us up to speed on what we just heard there.
Talking about is seepage from tailings ponds at the Kearl oil sands site that is near Fort McMurray. And for anyone who doesn't understand, the tailings pond, that is where the industrial wastewater is stored from the processing of oil from the oil sands, the removal of the dirt in order to make it into a viable source of energy that could then be further processed. So in the tailings pond, what we're talking, the wastewater we're talking about contained arsenic, dissolved iron, and sulfates. That's based on previous CBC reporting. And the seepage amount that we're talking about here is enough to potentially fill 2 Olympic-sized pools. The timeline you heard them talking about there in terms of when they first learned about this, the environment enforcement officers started inspecting in February 7th of this year. And that is when residents of Fort Chipewyan and other communities that are downstream from this tailings pond, from this oil sands operation, that's where they are. And that's when they learned about it, was in February. But it is apparent that it was actually known about as long back as May of 2022. So that's now a year ago. It was some 9 months before it became aware to the residents in that area and to the environment enforcement officers who began inspecting. And what we're hearing today is that based on those inspections of what has happened, they have now turned this into an investigation. They're not commenting. You heard them say on what the potential penalties might be from this investigation, because it is an active investigation. What we have heard, though, from Imperial Oil, the vice president of the operations there, speaking to the residents of Fort Chipewyan in March, assuring them that based on their data, there's been no contamination to the water, to the animals, to the fish. But that is really to be determined now by the federal investigators, if you will, who are now going to be looking into this. And you heard them also say that they have met with representatives from Imperial Oil who oversee this site, and they said that they did themselves no favors in those meetings. So we will see where this goes in terms of that investigation, but we have heard from residents of that area, and we have a map just to show you the distance that we're talking about here, the number of communities that are between the oil sands sites that are downstream from there to Fort Chipewyan, and they are angry about the time it took them to learn that this had happened, Hannah.
Okay, Sarah, thank you so much.
You bet.